Your Majesty.
What a wonderful evening, don't you think, General?
With all honesty, my king, it could be better. Everything could be better.
Don't despise the Night Lord's Cobra. It always means an end and a new beginning.
I've come to tell you that your daughter, the princess, wants to speak with you about the situation of the capital.
She's doing an excellent job in administrating. I've taken a good choice to put her in charge, while we prepare the defense against the orcs.
With all honesty, your Majesty, some citizens say otherwise, while others say good things.
As always, nothing new.
I now return to the Bastion, my king. Tomorrow, the nobles shall wait us for the Council of War.
Very well, Lord Cobra. I wish you a good night.
Father, finally you've come.
Elswith, I'm sorry for being absent in the past few days. The matters of war take me almost all the time, and when I'm done with those discussions with these damned nobles, I'm so tired that I just go to sleep. At this point, I would just prefer to pick up my armor and weapons and return to the battlefield to fight with my soldiers and paladins.
Father, don't risk your life. We need you here. Vanguard shall descend into panic and chaos if you abandon the city.
I shall not live forever. What will you do when I go to the realm of Enos? You can't let the kingdom of Mirtana fall because I shall be dead. You must learn to rule and lead armies.
I'm trying my best to manage the situation here in Vanguard, but the citizens are restless and hungry. There has been another brawl at the pork granaries. The problem is that we cannot continue to welcome the entire Mirtana inside our walls. Soon the food will be finished and the coastal region doesn't produce enough grain to support all these people. We must close the gates of the city before it's too late.
If we close the entire city, the people you're talking about would set the countryside on fire, causing a rebellion in both the regions still under our control. We've already lost the provinces of the Westmer, Heartlands and Ardaric, not to mention the loss of Nordmer, Farand, the entire eastern archipelago and the southern islands. We are losing the war elsewhere.
We will further ration the remaining food supplies, in the hope that agricultural production will be able to support all the refugees.
This situation cannot endure any longer. We must stop the orcs. We must defeat them, at any cost, if we want to survive. And I will not see my daughter murdered by an orc axe. In less than 3 days, the entire force stationed in the coastal region of Timoris will depart to the front alongside me.
What about the plan of the magical, that you together with Lord Hagen and Lord Roland had thought up?
An ambitious plan indeed. Thanks to the production of the magic ore, we were able to produce better weapons and armor, and thus defend at least the eastern part of Miatonna. But ever since the creation of that cursed magic barrier, we've had to come to terms with those bastards of the Ore Barons, rebel bandits, who murdered our soldiers and held us to ransom for years. Then, 3 years ago, the barrier of the Valley of Mines collapsed, and no one knows nothing about it. And it has been more than a year then I sent Lord Hagen himself with my ship the Esmeralda to take control of the situation on the island of Korinis.
But we send another warship to Korinis with reinforcement regiments for Lord Hagen's mission.
Our remaining warships are all engaged in protecting Vanguard and fighting in the Sea of Miatonna against the ore galleys attacking from Trellis. We've already suffered several attacks along the coast, and even here in the capital. We can't risk even one more ship if the intent is trying to learn exactly what's happening in Korinis, or worse, in the southern islands and eastern archipelago. Anything new from the southern islands?
A few merchant ships still sail towards Miatonna from our lost provinces, and from these, I've managed to learn some rather disturbing informations. Our soldiers stationed in the eastern archipelago have practically betrayed Miatonna, and joined forces with the rebel army of the Araxos Guild on the island of Arkelos, led by the usurper called Lorenzo. And if these rumors are true, they are imposing their rule over all the surrounding islands, killing anyone who dares oppose them. They enslave enemies like the Orcs and the Varantians. Perhaps they've even formed an alliance with the Hashishan Sultanate for this very reason.
Are there any reports on our army on the island of Argan?
Not much. As for the provinces under the control of House Tronta, the Seraphian rebels led by Prince Izithorn VI and his brother Gawain, after regaining control of their capital Sararif, they formed an alliance with the barony of Stuork and defeated the Mitannian army stationed on the island of Argan. After that, Ithorn, as the eldest son of the previous king of Argan, Ithorn V, proclaimed himself King Ithorn VI, and, after that, we also lost contact with the militias of Torgon and Korshan. Governor Lord Edgar was killed in the Battle of Silver Lake. As we already know, his son's body hasn't been found. It's possible that Lord Russell and some of his soldiers and paladins managed to escape.
Anything new on the other islands of the southern archipelago? The former provinces under the control of House Celestorm.
Lord Roland managed to obtain some information from a merchant ship coming from the island of Sandir Sol. It seems that the situation there has descended into total chaos, after you recalled Governor Lord Rigaldo here in Miatonna, to fight the Orcs advancing from Nordmer, and after his death in combat, and the defeat of his army at the Battle of the Esh Mountains on the Nordmerian border, the islands of Sandir Sol, Montilia, and Eritros have returned to their former rulers. So nothing new from what we already knew, and nothing more is known about Lord Rigaldo's sons either. Paladins Olivier and Samuel of House Elistorm have been missing, or most likely dead since years.
If Hagen manages to come back with a ship full of magic ore, then we still have hope to fight the Orcish army with superior weapons. However, if the front lines of Gotha and Ferring fall, Vanguard shall not resist a siege battle from all sides. We wouldn't have the numbers to defend the capital. We must meet the Orcs in battle and stop their army in the countryside of Montira before it's too late.
Today, Lord Roland was looking for you. He seemed a bit worried.
Tomorrow I shall hold the Council of War with the generals. As I said, it is time for me to finally take direct command of the Miatanian army. I will stay in Gotha and lead our forces from there.
The royal treasury is running low. We must attempt to reconquer at least some of the lost territories. Otherwise, it will be difficult to ensure payments to the army and the kingdom's various servants.
We will all make further sacrifices, and those who wish to abandon the royal army and the noble militias shall not be persecuted as deserters. I would understand those who no longer wish to fight at this point. And in any case, what is needed now are real soldiers convinced to fight to the death against all odds without hesitation. Men who can be counted on. Better a small motivated army than one unmotivated to fight.
By the way, Father, Archmage Charybdis says that there are not enough materials to build more runes for the paladins. They are trying to recruit some more barrel mages, but it's not very easy. He says that to become a fine mage is a slow process, and very few individuals can use magic without the runes or the magic scrolls.
Yes, the old magic is a gift for few. So far, only the highest and most powerful of the mages are able to learn to use their magic without the runes or the scrolls. Charybdis is doing his best. We shall not win the war with the help of magic this time. Just give Charybdis what he needs from our reserve warehouses.
Yes, Father.
Be with us tomorrow, Ealhswith. At the Council of War, I must take important decisions, and I wish you would be by my side. You're the only person I trust blindly at the court.
Father, I...
Great. See you tomorrow here at the War Council. Good night, Ealhswith.
Good night, Father.
Your mother would have been proud of you.
Hey, little rookie, did you sleep well?
One thing is certain. We shall meet again. These were the last words of Zardes. For teleporting away.
And Belier has chosen me. You were repeating these words since our departure from Badora. Zardes is not here. You haven't come out from your cabin since days. All of us are worried about you.
He has absorbed some kind of power on that damned island. We don't know what he's capable of now. It was always his plan. But for what?
It depends on who you ask, and the answer will be different every time. But all of us agree that is not a good thing.
I don't know if it is a good idea sailing towards the capital. But Girion insists that we must absolutely bring the magic ore on the ship to Vanguard.
We could always throw him overboard and sail to the southern archipelago. Maybe our gun.
After what happened on Hidoref with Zardes, no one is truly safe in the whole world anymore.
Well, I didn't abandon my recently obtained luxury villa in Corinis for nothing. You've helped me with my revenge against that scum of Gubrant. We've been through a lot, my old friend. If you need my help, you can always count on me.
Thank you, Diego. You've always been there for me since the beginning.
You have to come out from this fucking cabin. Buy Nos and Adonos together. You need to take some fresh sea air.
I don't even know what to say when we arrive in Vanguard. They might even arrest us on the spot for stealing the Esmeralda from Lord Hagen.
Well, that is possible, but highly unlikely. Surely they will question us a lot. We are quite a bizarre group, and we obviously don't look like paladins for Metanian soldiers. I suggest you to talk to Girion. Both you and him, as members of the Royal Paladins of Metona, can guarantee a safe passage to us all.
All right. I shall speak to Girion.
Lee wants to know if we stay on course for Vanguard.
Yes, we sail towards the capital of Mirtana.
What the fuck? Is that one of our ships?
It's the Esmeralda. You drunken fool. Lord Hagen has returned. We must warn the king immediately.
Good morning, my king. I apologize for disturbing you, but it seems that a ship has just appeared on the horizon. I think it is the Esmeralda.
Very well, Lord Cobrin. Signal the Esmeralda to dock at the Southern Harbor District. Tell Lord Hagen that I shall receive him here at the castle.
What about the magic ore?
Disembark the magic ore from the ship and begin transporting it here in the castle. Once finished, distribute it to the forges in Vanguard, Ferring, and Gotha, and allocate a portion to the forges in the coastal villages of Ardea and Cape Dunn.
Yes, your majesty.
Hey, Tyrion,
You finally got out from that fucking cabin.
is that Vanguard over there?
Yes, Dragon Slayer. Welcome in, Mirtana.
So what do we do now?
If we reveal to the Paladins that we stole the ship from Lord Hagen, even for a noble purpose, they'd likely arrest us immediately. If we want to keep our heads, we must cooperate.
I bet you have something in mind.
Listen carefully. We shall say that Lord Hagen sent us on a mission to eliminate the servants of Beliar in the Temple of Edorath, the source of evil, that was compromising our quest for the magic ore in the Valley of Mines. Unfortunately, he wasn't able to come with us, because he was preparing an army to attack the colony, Saint Garon's expedition, and retake those territories.
So Lord Hagen would send only the two of us, with a group of non-paladin warriors to attack one of the most dangerous temples of Beliar in the world? Does that really sound that believable to you?
You slew the dragons on Corinis and discovered the location of the evil source, the lost Isle of Edorath, by slaying Beliar's beasts in the Valley of Mines. You earned your reputation as the strongest warrior on the Isle. If anyone should have been sent to Edorath, it had to be you.
Why sending only me and you though? What about our companions?
Lord Hagen needed all his other paladins and soldiers to attack the Orcish army in the Valley of Mines. He had to save Commander Garon's troops and restore the production lines of the magic ore. To this end, he ordered us to find some comrades in arms to fight against Beliar's hordes on Edorath. This will explain why, apart from the two of us, there are no other paladins aboard with us.
Great, but then why didn't we return to Corinis to fight the orcs in the Valley of Mines alongside Lord Hagen, once we destroyed the evil on Edorath?
Is that story you tell about Zardes even true?
Before our departure from Edorath, I had just removed my armor and helmet. I was about to lie down on the bed to rest a bit, when I heard that dark, shadowy voice. I turned, and there was Zardes, already looking at me with empty, soulless eyes. He revealed to me that he had become the bearer of Beliar's power into the world.
It was a great surprise when Lord Hagen told us that Archmage Irakar had met Zardes in that ritual to restore the power of the Eye of Innos. For years, we had thought he was dead after he disappeared, following the abandonment of the Magicians of Fire in the Valley of Mines. And now, he reappears as the new herald of Beliar's army.
That's why I decided to sail to Mirtana. We could have sailed anywhere in the world. That's true. And no, I'm not interested in handing over the little bit of magic ore we have on board to the king. I want to find answers to all of this.
You and I are paladins. We will deliver the magic ore we have on board to King Robar, and then fight with the Myrtanian army in war. My goal has never been to abandon the kingdom, and you know it well. And this is my chance to go back to fight where I belong, for my homeland, for Mirtana.
If Sardis has become what he claims to be, he may not be a danger to the entire kingdom of Miatama, but rather to the entire world of Morgran.
And that is precisely the final reason why we're here, before the harbor of Vanguard. And that is precisely what you will tell the king. We have not returned to Korinis because an even greater threat than the orcs may emerge from the shadows. And that is none other than Zardis himself.
Why would they believe me? I'm not a general. I'm not an archmage. And I'm not a great hero. No one here on the continent knows of my deeds.
You have two pieces of evidence to prove your point. You possess the Eye of Enos, an ancient artifact used only by the most powerful warriors of Enos who ever lived. The last paladin to wear it before you was none other than King Robar I. If Lord Hagen hadn't seen something in you, he would never have had the magicians of fire give it to you. Without the Eye of Enos, you would never have been able to force the dragons to reveal the information regarding Edorath. And then, you have my testimony, which, for what it's worth, will be yours anyway. Some will doubt it, of course, but the king will believe you.
Why are you truly helping us, Kirin? You might as well say that I and the others are deserters. That we stunned you and imprisoned you on the ship, risking everything to escape the war in Korinis.
As I told you, I long to return to fight in my homeland. I seized the first chance I had to avoid dying in that shithole of Korinis. And besides, you know, I have a woman here in Vanguard awaiting for my return. When I heard Wayne news that the capital was in danger, I had the worst days of my life. I was worried about her, and so I began to plan a way to leave, until you showed up with your crazy gang.
That's why you didn't object to much to our taking over the Esmeralda. You've been planning your desertion for a long time, to return to your woman.
But now, I have the chance to return to her without falling into disgrace, forcing both me and her to flee. I will remain in Vanguard with her until the king sends us to the front, and it will be an honor to fight with you again, brother. I know we will have each other's backs in battle, and together we will survive another day.
Greetings.
Who are you?
We are the paladins in the service of Lord Hagen. Others are our mercenaries and comrades in arms.
I don't see Lord Hagen among your ranks, nor Lord Andre and Lord Garon, nor any of their other paladins and soldiers.
Me and Lord Girion have been chosen by General Hagen himself for a mission of the utmost importance. Unfortunately, we were sent alone, forced to find comrades in arms, as Lord Hagen could not send any of his paladins to join us, given the sudden orc invasion of the valued mines in Korinis.
Did you bring any magic ore?
There are many crates of magic ore on the Esmeralda. You can order immediate disembarkation.
Who do you fight against?
Korinis had been attacked by 4 dragons from the island of Udorath. Those dragons in the value mines have been killed, and after discovering the location of the island of Udorath, we were sent to destroy the temple of Belir in that shithole. The place was filled with orcs and dark creatures, led by the more demonic dragons, and thanks to Enos, we managed to kill them all.
Dragons? Are you serious?
and we are here in Miatana by order of Lord Hagen. But I will reveal the details of the mission only to the king.
All right, the king is meeting in council with the nobles. Leave your comrades in arms here at the port. Follow me to the castle.
What? And who the hell are you? You are not Hagen. Who are you? We have all been waiting for the expedition's return from Korinis. Paladin, reveal your intentions. Immediately. I demand an explanation.
Greetings, my king. I come before the court of Vanguard with news from General Lord Hagen.
What news do you bring, Paladin? I don't see your general here with us, so I hope you have a good reason to interrupt my war council.
The situation on Korinis has descended into complete chaos. Following the fall of the colony's magic barrier, the island has been attacked by an army of orcs, led by a shaman named Hushpak, and for demonic dragons of Belia.
We suspected that massive orcish fleet was heading from Trellis towards Korinis. Our ships stationed guarding the coastal region of Timoris to the south had spotted orcish galleys sailing east, and now we're certain their objective was to destroy our supply lines of magical from Korinis. But dragons, really?
Lord Hagen expedition into the Valley of Mines resulted in a bloodbath. The survivors scattered across the region, while most of the soldiers and paladins had taken refuge in the castle of Old Camp. But despite all these disasters, Lord Hagen is alive and preparing a new army, inviting all factions of Korinis to unite and put aside their differences. The general has issued an appeal to the population to take up arms for survival. The goal now is to attack the Valley of Mines and defeat the orcish army in battle.
And the dragons.
After proving my worth to General Hagen, he honored me by welcoming me into the ranks of the Paladins. And, considering me worthy of wearing the Eye of Venus, he sent me to the Valley of Mines to find the dragons and slay them, and so I did.
My court watches you, perplexed at having heard these words. Are you what? A hero sent by Enos? A jester disguised as a paladin?
I do not know, my king, but I prove the truth of my words by showing you the ring on my finger. I hold the Eye of Venus, the artifact that allowed me to compel the dragons to reveal crucial information to me, and that allowed me to fight with the power and strength of Enos.
You won't have to convince me, young warrior, but rather my court. I know a sign of destiny when I see one.
It wasn't the first time I'd faced the demons of Belia. The barrier in the Valley of Mines had grown to gigantic proportions because it had been tampered with by an archdemon of Belia whom the orcs called Krushak, and whom the humans called Sleeper. Venturing into the demonic temple beneath an orcish settlement, I managed to slay the Herald of Belia, and with his defeat, the magic barrier fell as well.
And so, you're also a former convict from the Valley of Mines. Impressive indeed. You've come a long way, and now you're even in our ranks. I wouldn't even know whether to call you friend, enemy, or a jester.
I'm no jester, but maybe I'm starting to think that if I were, it would have been better. Nor am I a hero. All my exploits were directed by the Necromancer Zardes, and without his help, I wouldn't have lived to tell the tale.
Zardes, so he's alive after his disappearance nearly a decade ago, but a necromancer? I'd heard rumors I didn't want to believe. Letters signed by Archmage Choristo addressed to the monastery of Korinis reported that Sardas had mysteriously abandoned the Order of the Magicians of Fire, perhaps to join Belier's forces. 9 years ago, I asked General Lord Rigaldo to take up the case. He and Archmage Pyrakar of Korinis were convinced that Sardas had disappeared for a higher reason, and so they continued to send letters addressed to Sardas, hoping the fire mages trapped within the barrier would deliver them to him.
I myself came into possession of one of those letters. Pyrakar intended to use me as a messenger before I was cast into the colony by the militia Korinis. What Lord Rigaldo and Archmage Pyrakar believed was false. Sardas abandoned the Order of the Magicians of Fire to serve Belier, and to gain immense power from the darkness, greater than that of any mage in the kingdom of Mirtana, and perhaps the entire world of Morgrad.
But that doesn't explain why you and your comrades in arms possess the Esmeralda, my warship, and above all, why you're here without Lord Hagen. Tell me what happened.
During my encounter with the last living dragon in the Valley of Mines, I suspected that the source of the evil might not lie on Korinis itself, or anywhere we know of. My intuition was right, my king. With the power of the Eye of Venus, I forced the dragon to reveal its provenance to me. And it was the Temple of Belier on the Isle of Verdorath.
I read something about Verdorath in some old, dusty book forgotten on my library shelves here in the palace. The temple was destroyed by the ancient warriors of Venus, the first paladins in history, led by the legendary King Yorizil, a mythological ruler of the ancient kingdom of Mirtana. I thought it was just a legend, since the location of the island of Verdorath has always been a great mystery, and no sailor in history had ever managed to find it. And so the Temple of Belier was also real, but why wasn't it destroyed as the ancient stories say?
I don't have the answer to this, your majesty. But I can tell you that Lord Hagen, having learned of the discovery of the Temple of Verdorath, had decided to organize an expedition to destroy the source of evil. But the orcs, in great numbers, threatened the safety of the city. And so, only I and Lord Kirian were chosen to carry out this mission, for the glory of Mirtana and the triumph of Venus over the darkness.
From what Lord Cobran tells me, there are other warriors and mages with you, and they are neither paladins nor battle mages.
Foreseeing the difficulties we would face on Verdorath, Lord Hagen had ordered us to form a group of comrades in arms to aid us in our endeavor. The general was to commit all his paladins and soldiers to the attack south in the colony.
I understand Hagen's reasoning, but sending so few men to fight in a place like Verdorath seems rather foolish. You are very fortunate to have survived such a battle.
Lord Hagen will return to the continent of Midland, only if he manages to defeat the orcish army camped in the southern swamp of the Valley of Mines, and until that happens, the supply lines of the magic ore are severed, and production is halted.
And why, after your adventure in the jaws of Verdorath, didn't you head to Korinis to rejoin your general's army?
My king, what happened on Verdorath is why we are here in Mirtana, before Vanguard's court.
What did you see on Verdorath?
On that cursed island, we entered a vast cave system that led to the temple inland. There we fought orcs, demons, and seekers. Guarding the temple, there was another dragon which I had to battle. Descending deep into the temple's heart, I encountered an undead dragon infused with a malignant ore in its bones. Before fighting, it proclaimed itself to be an herald of Belier, an archdemon like the one in the Valley of Mines. He declared that its god had informed it of my existence, and that our battle had already been decided by fate. Perhaps the dragon, however, imagined a different fate for himself. The fight was exhausting, but I managed to defeat him. But before I could finish it, and banish Belier's power from this world once again, the unexpected happened.
Sardas!
Yes, my king. How do you know?
My intuition is as good as yours, young paladin.
Ever since we were trapped in the Valley of Mines, Sardas had actually plotted to assume the powers of an herald of Belier, to become an archdemon himself. What he failed in the Temple of the Sleeper, he succeeded in the Temple of Verdorath. He suddenly appeared, teleporting to where I and the dragon were, and, casting a spell on me, he hurled me against the rocks of the cave. I lost consciousness for a few minutes. When I awoke, I began walking towards Sardas in confusion, calling his name. He trusted me and signaled me with his hand to stop. I trusted him, for until then he had guided and directed me in all my endeavors. Performing a brief ritual, he absorbed all the evil aura that had previously surrounded the dragon and penetrated its very bones. It hurled itself against Sardas with great force like a storm wind.
Where is Sardas now?
I don't even know this, my king. After completing the ritual, Sardas teleported away from the main hall of the Temple of Verdorath. He reappeared in my cabin on the ship. Just before we set sail from the island, I was busy putting my paladin armor in my chest and lying down on the bed to rest, when suddenly, Sardas teleported into my cabin and revealed his plans all along. and that he had assumed Belis' powers.
Sardas was one of the most powerful fire mages who ever lived. He was my archmage here in Vanguard before Character. He was one of my most trusted advisors. What you say puts the entire kingdom of Mirton in danger. I wouldn't be surprised if he teleported here in the continent to accomplish whatever his goals are.
And that is why we are here, your majesty. I was tasked by Lord Hagen to destroy the source of evil on Eodorath. But that power was not banished. In the end, I failed in my mission. Sardas stole that power for himself for reasons still unknown. I am here to seek it out and gain answers.
Lord Hagen must have really seen something in you. You've accomplished much. I'd like to continue our conversation in private, away from prying ears. Sorry, I was looking for a letter regarding the latest report on the Orcish army stationed east of Montier. Do you like the maps?
I've always been curious about Morgrad, our world.
Then you know that we are on the brink of the destruction of our kingdom, and I could not leave you there to further disturb the frailty of my court with disturbing news.
But you must believe me, my king.
As I've already told you, I believe you. There are too many coincidences not to believe your words, and that's why I intend to continue our conversation here.
Will you send the Esmeralda back to Corinis?
No, as I explained also to my daughter Elswith, we can't risk losing even a single warship, and in any case, I don't have enough soldiers to assist General Hagen and his paladins. They'll have to fend for themselves. And if they win the battle in the Valley of Mines, I'm sure they'll procure another ship to return to Mirtona, and maybe we'll be dead by then.
Has the Mirtanian Western Front already fallen?
Unfortunately, Sardas isn't our only problem. 10 years ago, the Orcish army invaded the province of Nord, and despite our army being supported by the armies of the Nord Meriandals, we were defeated in numerous battles and forced to retreat south. The Orcs still occupy the territories of Nordmer, constantly fighting against the Nord Merians. However, the capital, Efjelborg, and the other settlements have not yet been conquered. 8 years ago, the Orcs attacked the Nord Merian border and invaded northwest Mirtona, ravaging the provinces of Westmer, first taking Sealden and then Gelden.
The Battle of the Ash Mountains in the Great Northern Forest. The Great Battle on the Sealdenian Plains. The Siege of Geldern. I was 20 years old at the time, and everyone in Corinis talked about it for months.
A week, the Orcs destroyed much of our army. Lord Hagen had been the governor of Nordmer before his army was defeated and forced to flee south. His troops had been joined by the forces of General Lord Rigaldo, one of our governors in the Southern Isles, whom I recalled to Mirtona to strengthen the kingdom's northern defenses. The combined armies faced the Orc advance in the Great Forest at the base of the Ash Mountains. Rialdo was killed in combat, his army destroyed, and Hagen was forced to flee south again with the survivors. A week later, the Orcs again routed our army on the Sealden Plains, led by the Baron of the Westmer, Paladin Lord Borgen Dustark, and General Hagen. Needless to say, after these defeats, there were no numbers to defend the city of Geldern, which suffered a massacre.
What happened to the other provinces of Mirtona?
After the fall from grace of General Lord Lee, former governor of Varant, it was only a matter of time before the Hashishan Sultanate rose from the ashes to exact revenge for the Mirtanian conquest. 6 years ago, the Varantians regained control of the province and, forming a strategic alliance with the Orcs, invaded southern Mirtona. The county of Ardaric, ruled by Lord Maurice Krakenhall, found itself under attack overnight. The city of Trellis failed to withstand the siege by land and sea, and the local militias were forced to retreat north. The following year, we also lost the provinces in the Eastern Archipelago and the Southern Isles.
I remember, 5 years ago, people were talking about what happened on Arkelos.
Nearly 5 years after the first Arkelos uprising, the second one occurred exactly 5 years ago. It was orchestrated and organized by one of the richest and most powerful men in the kingdom, the leader of the Araxos Merchant Guild, Lorenzo. This son of a whore used his personal army to crush our militia and assassinate Governor Lord Roderick. No one could have foreseen this madman's ambitions. He massacred the entire city, and now he is expanding his dominion to the other islands of the Eastern Archipelago, meeting little resistance and continuing to perpetrate massacres and mayhem.
And not much is known about the situation in the southern islands.
While civil war was raging in the Eastern Archipelago, another rebellion was erupting on the island of Argon in the Southern Archipelago, led by the Duke of Citorif, Lord Ifon, and his brother, Lord Gawain, the Count of Forniara. They were soon joined by Baron Renwick of Stuork and his brother Lord Hetton. Our forces were under the command of General Lord Edgar of House Tronta, our governor of the islands of Argon, Corshon, and Torban. Besieged in the city of Forniara, he was unable to halt the advance of Serarifian army. Having taken refuge with a few remnants of the Meatanian army at the castle of Silver Lake, he was brutally murdered in the fortress's forecourt by the rebels of Yvonne and Gawain after surrendering. It is likely that his son, Paladin Lord Russell, and also all the other soldiers and paladins were also mercilessly slaughtered. For years, we have had no news of the survivors of Silver Lake, if there ever were any.
Ethorn has been the new king of Argon since almost 5 years already. Some in Khorinis even feared a possible invasion.
The citizens of Khorinis are right to fear the Serarifians. The island of Argon currently possesses one of the most powerful armies in the southern islands, along with it of the Sultanate of Xandasol, and we know with good probability that nearby islands, including Corshon and Torban, have been attacked by the fleet of Citorif. It is possible that the Argonian usurper intends to attempt to re-establish the ancient kingdom of the Southern Archipelago, founded 1,000 years ago by the legendary King Ethorn I. A goal that has been repeatedly failed by his successors over the centuries, and Khorinis itself was also dominated by the kingdom of Argon for approximately 2 centuries.
Why do you tell me about the political situation in the kingdom of Miatana? Everyone knows your misfortunes, my king.
I think nothing happens by chance. The sudden Orcish invasion, rebellions erupting across the kingdom, and now even archdemon heralds of Belier appearing in our world. Too many catastrophes have occurred for me not to suspect a greater evil plan, one that could involve not only Miatana, but our entire world. It struck me that you and I, without even knowing each other, had a similar intuition.
But what can we do about it, your majesty? If our time has come to an end, this must be the cruel will of the gods. Perhaps our end is a new balance in the world.
Spare me the sermons of Ardono's followers. I don't care what the gods want, or even what the fucking Moss wants. I am a father, and I only want to protect my daughter and my people. We must fight, my friend. Our survival depends on it. You have accomplished extraordinary deeds. If Innos or Ardonos ever wanted to send us help, I believe that moment came aboard the Esmeralda, and it is you.
We must kill Zardis, my king.
First, you should find out if Zardis is actually on the continent of Midland or has already left. Get him to reveal his true intentions, and then decide whether or not to kill him. We still don't know what he wants from all of us.
What are my new orders, your majesty?
You and the other paladin you came with are tasked with finding information on Zardis. You could investigate here in the capital, and possibly in the coastal region. I doubt you'll find anything in enemy territory, or that anyone in the other provinces would be willing to help you. News often travels more easily in Vanguard than in the rest of the world. We must find a way to discover where Zardis is hiding. Unfortunately, you won't have much time. We'll soon depart with a good portion of our remaining army to fight the Orcs advancing from Montira towards the province of the North Gorge. We'll establish ourselves in the fortresses of Gotha and Ferring, and direct our military counterattack from there. And if you have any friends or comrades in arms who would like to join you in fighting in the war, they are welcome to join our ranks.
Are the Orcs still led by Khan?
It's hard to shake that name from your memory once you hear it, or see its bearer in the flesh. The Orc King, Khan, the conqueror of Crossland. He's the mastermind behind every Orc commander or shaman.
He won't be happy to hear that I killed Hushpak, his shaman general that was leading the Orcish army in Khorinis.
We don't have much information about King Khan, except that he has united the Orcs of the northern continent of Crossland into a single, organized army. I've never had the misfortune of meeting him before, and every messenger we've ever sent to him has returned to us headless. He is not a ruler you could negotiate with, unfortunately. I don't think he's a brainless Orc, but a rather astute commander, considering all our defeats thus far. Hushpak caused us a lot of trouble. You've done a heroic deed, but King Khan will surely seek to find out who's responsible for the death of one of our highest commanders.
Do we know what Khan's true motivations are? People often make up all sorts of stories to make sense of their terrors.
Justified fears, because to this day, aside from the bullshit you hear around the kingdom, we still aren't sure what drove the Orcs to invade us.
Do you think Zardis has something to do with it at this point?
My family, House Morsword, has made countless enemies over the past century. My father, King Robar I himself, was murdered by assassins hired by Sultan Zubin of House Hashish, the rulers of Varant. This sparks the War of Varant, which our armies, led by General Need, won in the Battle of the Dunes. And that's not even considering all the other enemies from the other provinces. So it could all have been a malicious plot orchestrated by one or more factions, or by individuals. Until we find out what's really happening in the Kingdom of Mirtana, we can no longer be certain of anything.
How could I possibly find out where Zardes is?
Personally, we're talking about a mage. Zardes was the kingdom's most important Archmage of Fire, and my direct advisor here at court. The entire Church of Enos was under his leadership. Visit the Circle of Fire and the Circle of Water here in the capital. Perhaps one of them knows something we don't yet, and speak to my Archmage. His name's Character. He is what Zardes was, the leader of the Magicians of Fire here in Mirtana. Maybe he will be able to help you on your quest.
What can you tell me about the harbor?
The Southern Harbor District is one of the most important and wealthy districts in the city. But although there is a lot of news circulating, much of it is complete nonsense. While I'd avoid the Northern Harbor District, you're unlikely to find anything of interest there other than our shipyard.
What about the other districts of Vanguard?
I doubt you'd find any information of interest in the central districts. You could visit the taverns or the brothels, but I don't think they have anything to reveal to you about necromancers or archdemons of Beliar. You'll surely find plenty of people who hate me, or they might throw eggs and tomatoes at you in protest. Or even worse, poor fools. When the orcs arrive, they'll be the first to regret me. In any case, I advise against wandering around the poor districts alone wearing a paladin armor.
I'll try stay away from those places.
Try to find out something useful. I'll delay the army's departure by a week, but I won't give you any more time to gather your informations. In fact, we must hope that Khan and his orcs won't attack before then, and no longer so sure the front will hold. If you need militiamen for any of your operations, you can use the soldiers from the bastion of the Southern Harbor District. I hope you don't have to resort to forceful measures. The situation here in the capital is already fragile enough to allow for riots and disorder.
At your command, Your Majesty.
Wear this ring. The guards and mages will know you're acting as my personal agent and won't deny you access to any building or location in the Kingdom of Mirtana. But I don't think it will give you any more credibility than wearing the Eye of Enos.
What ring is this?
It was my father's ring, King Robar I. With this, no one will ever challenge your authority.
I will return it to you as soon as I have fulfilled my orders. I am taking my leave from the court.
May Enos reveal your path, valiant paladin of Mirtana.
Greetings, young paladin. May Enos bless you. I see you that you're wearing the king's ring. He places his trust in you, and so I will do the same.
Venerable master, I have come before you seeking answers. For the king, for Mirtana, and for myself.
I listened attentively to your words in the throne room. What you said deeply unsettles me. I was initially skeptical, but the king trusts you, and Robar is no fool.
What can you tell me about Zardes?
Zardes was a formidable fire mage, hailing from a small island in the eastern archipelago called Tirith. He had come to Mirtana in his youth as a novice in the Circle of Fire. He soon demonstrated great skill and was welcomed into the ranks of the fire mages here in Vanguard. It was Archmage Barthos of Laren who appointed him as a member of our order.
Who was Barthos of Laren?
He was Archmage to King Robar I here at the court of Vanguard. He was the leader of the Mirtanian Circle of Fire before Zardes and before me. He was undoubtedly one of the most formidable magicians of our time. Many of the books on the magical arts present in the Kingdom of Mirtana were written by Master Barthos.
We must find Zardes. Both the king and I want to find out what his intentions are.
The ways of Enos are mysterious. He tests us at times. It's up to us to decide which path to choose. The path of light or the path of darkness. What you have faced up to now are the trials that Enos has decided for you, young paladin. We forge our own fate, but Enos accompanies us on the journey and tests our faith.
Why do you tell me this, wise master?
Whatever Zardes' intentions are, whatever are the intentions of our enemies in general, have faith in Enos, he shall not abandon you. Do not fear the unknown in the darkness. No matter what Beliar's power or how powerful he is in our age, Enos shall always prevail in the eternal war of the gods. We will fight, and we shall win.
I'm young, but I've encountered more darkness than I ever imagined. How will we stand against all this?
I'm fairly convinced that the invasion of the orcs from Crushland is part of a plan much larger than ourselves. Sometimes I feel like we're all mere pawns in a bloody and brutal power game. In little more than a decade, we've witnessed the collapse of the largest kingdom in the known world and the reemergence of beasts, archdemons, and dragons of Pelir, agents of the devil, thought to be mythological, long gone.
You're suggesting a political conspiracy.
But here we're not just talking about wars between kingdoms. The factions play their cards. Miatama has a long history of conquests and grand downfalls. This kingdom existed 1,000 years ago. It has seen countless dynasties over the centuries and periods of great turbulence and political instability. No one knows exactly who or what drove humans to settle in this land. There exist only unreliable myths and legends. The fact is that the people of Miatama have always been warmongers and have sparked conflicts across much of the world of Morgrad out of a thirst for conquest and power. Sometimes I wonder if we are the good ones or the evil ones. Only he knows can reveal who we are on our journey through this life.
An old friend once told me that everyone has always desired the throne of Miatama. Some out of ambition, some out of revenge.
House Norsword has ruled the kingdom of Miatama for a century. It has seen only two successive kings, King Robar I and his son, King Robar II, and in such a short time the dynasty is already in danger of collapse. The king has only one daughter. He lost his only male heir shortly after his birth.
Why do you say Miatama would collapse if we had a queen? When I was a child, I still remember an old storyteller visiting Korinis. He told tales of warrior women who, driven by courage and valor, trained in the use of weapons. Some of these women became queens of Miatama.
I don't believe there have ever been women who led armies and ascended the throne of Miatama. Storytellers travel the world to entertain us with interesting tales. As for myths and legends, Vanguard's library is full of them.
What more can you tell me about House Norsword?
King Robar I is its founder. The name is inspired by the sword of Miatama, a blade blessed by the tears of Enos that was found by Robar himself during his youth. He was originally from Nordmer. According to the most common known story, he was exiled from his home village for unknown reasons and found himself wandering aimlessly across the Nordmerian lands. For a time, he found refuge at the monastery of Enos, a religion not widely practiced among the Nordmerians. But during that stay, the young Robar converted to the cult of Enos. Drawn by the rumors of a young fire mage about a great treasure hidden within a vast complex of icy caverns, Robar and the mage ventured inside in search of riches. But upon finding those treasures, they were attacked by a great white shadow beast. No weapon or magic they possessed could tame the powerful beast. The magician of fire then drew a vial of tears of Enos from his robe with which he blessed an old sword embedded in the pile of treasures. The sword momentarily caught fire and small golden runes appeared along the length of the blade. Despite its size, it became incredibly light. An almost divine aura could be felt, granting power to its bearer. The magician barely managed to throw the sword into Robar's hands, saving him from being killed. The fight was brutal, but in the end, the beast was defeated.
Now I understand why the banners of the Miatanian army bear the heraldry of the shadow beast in white or gold.
These are, however, undocumented stories. They live on in folktales and the memories of our current king. The recorded history of House Norsword begins when Robar and his magician friend, using the riches accumulated from the cave of the White Shadow Beast, built an army of bloodthirsty Nordmerian mercenaries. Driven by ambition and supposed visions sent by Enos, they began raiding across Nordmer, effectively alienating all the Nordmerian Jarls. So they united and defeated Robar in battle, forcing him, his mage friend, and his mercenaries to flee south to Miatama.
Why did Robar and the magician gather an army to raid Nordmer?
This is an unresolved question. No one knows. Some in our order were trying to justify these crimes by inventing the spread of the cult of Enos in Nordmer. But honestly, as Archmage of Fire, I tell you this is a colossal bullshit. Robar was a warrior, and he was seeking blood and glory. The interesting thing is to understand what drove his mage friend to support him in these atrocities.
But who was the magician of fire who helped Robar I?
His name was Corvin. According to rumors, he was one of the grandsons of the Archmage of the Monastery of Enos in Nordmer of that time. His father, also a fire mage, had numerous affairs with various Nordmerian women. From one of these unions, Corvin was born. According to these rumors, he had always been a strange and rather mad mage. His opinions and ideas were considered crazy within the monastery. He was also fascinated by dark magic. The current archmage of the monastery, Master Altus, claims that Corvin was his older brother.
What happened to Robar and Corvin when they arrived in Mirtana?
As you know, Mirtana is divided into provinces, both here on the continent of Midland and in the islands. These regions, now known as duchies, baronies, and counties, were once true kingdoms independent of the throne of Vanguard. The capital itself and the coastal region were a separate kingdom called Timoris. And so Robar and Corvin conquered kingdom after kingdom, city after city. Their warriors ravaged all of Mirtana. During the war with the kingdom of Ardaric in southern Mirtana, they even raided as far as Varant. But they were defeated by the army of the Hashishin Sultanate and driven back north in Mirtana. They were thus able to alienate not only the Nordmarians, but also the Varantians.
Folk tales of Robar the First seem much more heroic than these tales.
The king knows I don't like to tell bullshits when it's not needed. A good portion of the people can't read or write. How could they possibly learn the truth about the events that actually happened in our history? They'll always make up all sorts of things.
Tell me the rest.
Robar conquered all of Mirtana. He married the princess of Monteranevia of House Cragwallis, who later became his queen. They had a son, whom they also named Robar. He appointed Corvin as Archmage of Fire in Vanguard, supreme head of the Order of Enos. Together they refounded the Order of Paladins as we know it today. Not content with that, they headed to Nordner with the army to subdue the clans who had previously defeated him. They'd built a fleet and conquered the kingdom of Corines, one of the closest great islands to Mirtana. But upon their return victorious, according to rumor, he and Corvin had a bitter falling out for reasons still unknown. The mage disappeared. No one ever heard from him again. The fire mage Pathos from the island of Laran took Corvin's place. After a few years, Robar I was murdered in one of the corridors of this castle. Queen Nevia was forced to raise little Robar II alone and rule Mirtana until our current king came of age.
By whom was King Robar I assassinated?
They were assassins of the then young Sultan Zubin of House Hashishin of Varant. King Robar I, during his conquests, had crossed the southern borders, pushing into Varant to plunder and raid. Zubin's father, Sultan Kossel Hashishin, ruled at the time. The Varantian army, supported even by some of the nomadic desert tribes, managed to defeat the Mirtanian army at the Battle of Ben Irai. Years later, after Zubin's father's death, the Varantians assassinated Robar I and invaded southern Mirtana, embarking on a decades-long campaign of conquest. This war ended only with the conquest of Varant by our current king and his army led by General Lee.
What happened next?
Robar II and his generals brought war to the eastern archipelago and the southern isles, defeating the royal house of Wolfson in Arkelos and the royal house of Markland in Argan. After conquering the cities of Arkelos and Serarif, many of the smaller islands in the two archipelagos surrendered. After a few disorganized resistances from the local rulers, war did, however, break out against the kingdom of Torgon and the Sultanate of Sandirsal. Both were defeated and conquered. Then there was a period of peace, until the outbreak of the Orcish War and the events we are still a part of today.
But now tell me, Master Character, how can I know if Sardis is on the continent?
You can't, but you can make sure I find out.
What do you mean?
One of the most interesting aspects of ancient magic is how it can sometimes be both dark and light at the same time. When I was young, I came across a rather bizarre tome. Its title was Visions and Teleportations. The book was located in the library of the Temple of Enos in the capital. For a time I knew that it was loaned to the magicians of water here in Vanguard. After that, I never heard anything more about it. And unfortunately, no copies of this magical tome were ever produced, as ancient magic aroused little interest compared to the runic magic of our time.
Why would this tome be so important?
It contains some information about an ancient magic spell. In near mythical times, it was used by ancient magicians to gain a view of a place or person, and, if desired, teleport to that point. I don't think I've ever read in my mind about a teleportation spell more powerful than this. In our time, teleportation occurs only with pentagrams and rune stones, and only the most powerful mages are capable of teleporting without taking damage.
And how would you get a vision of Sardis? Or where he is?
Well, that's exactly what we need to find out, because I don't remember it anymore. That's why we need to find that tome.
But isn't there a library archive? Something that recorded whether the volume was moved again.
You need to examine records from several decades ago. Go to Princess Eoswith. She is the daughter of King Roba II. She currently manages the administration of England on her father's behalf. Every 10 years, both the records of the temples of Inos and those of Adanos in the city are removed from their archives to make room for new ones. However, they are usually stored for a few more decades in the castle archives before being burned. Eoswith also manages our archives where she maintains her offices.
I will ask Eoswith for records of the movement of tomes from the temple's libraries.
Good, young paladin. Return to me when you have the tome. May Enos enlight your path.
I apologize for the inconvenience.
Greetings, Paladin. What brings you here?
Master Character sent me. I'm looking for a tome of ancient magic called Visions and Teleportations. The book in question is vitally important, but appears to have been lost over the past decades.
Strange indeed. You're not the first to ask me about this tome. The Count of Trellis also asked me about it, telling me exactly the same thing. I've been searching the archives for a whole week looking for information on it, and it seems the tome was moved for a time to the Palace of the Water Mages. Perhaps it was then returned to the Temple of Enos. I wouldn't rule out either possibility.
Who is the Count of Trellis?
He is the ruler of the county of Ardaric, in the region of southern Mirtona. Lord Maurice Krakenhall is the current count of that province and the port city of Trellis. Unfortunately, his holdings have fallen into the clutches of the Varantians. The army of House Krakenhall is now on the Gotha frontier, along with those of the other surviving Itanian noble houses. Lord Maurice, however, had come to Vanguard for the War Council and was with us in the throne room during your speech.
Where can I find Lord Maurice?
From what I understand, once the War Council was over, he and Lord Orin would have left immediately for Gotha. They would have preceded Lord Roland and my father the king by a few days.
Are you always so focused on your work?
I am Elswith Norsword, Princess of Mirtona, and daughter of King Roba II. When I can afford to do nothing, I'll let you know. We're on the brink, with the city gripped by panic and daily riots. My father is busy defending our lands and can't allow himself any other thoughts. If you hadn't worked with our administrators to maintain order, you'd likely have arrived to a city in flames and our heads on pikes.
Tell me about your family.
My family fell apart the day my father betrayed my mother, the Queen, with a woman named Arian, fathering a child with her. I remember that name well. My mother often whispered it, sinking into sadness and hatred.
Did your father no longer love his queen?
My mother was made a son of House Folkwald, originally from Fielborg, the capital of Nordma. She married my father and became Queen of Mirtona. My father loved her until he met another woman, whom everyone called Arian, a woman from the island of Ugan who worked here at the castle as a servant.
So it was just a passion without any criteria.
My father fell head over heels for this woman. He copulated with her, fathering a bastard son. He too was named Roba. I was very young at the time and vaguely remember my brother in the cradle. After some time, both Arian and the newborn were sent away from court for reasons my father never wanted to reveal to me. Talking about these matters makes him miserable, and it takes him days to recover from his sadness.
So your mother finally got rid of the problem.
The embarrassment at court persisted for years. Arian died in a fire inside her residence in the upper districts of Corinas, where the king had sent her with the newborn a few years earlier. Little Roba was never heard from again. Some assume my brother also died in the fire.
I am sorry.
A few years later, my mother was assassinated by General Lee. He swore to the last minute that he hadn't done it and that he was the victim of a conspiracy. It's hard to believe when you find yourself lying in a pool of blood with my mother's corpse beside you. My father was broken. Too late, he realized he still loved my mother. No one believed Lee. I specifically asked my father to kill him in the cruelest way possible. But my father decided to send him to the Valley of Mines because he had served the kingdom honorably for many years and had won many battles in the War of Varant.
What you say touches me deeply. I understand what it feels like to be alone in this world.
I have forgiven my father for what he did to my mother. His betrayal was born of the weakness of the flesh. He had always been in love with his queen, and since he lost her, he has never married or fathered any more children.
So you are the heir to the throne of Mirtona.
When my father is no more, I will ascend to the throne of Mirtona as queen.
Sometimes I wonder where I come from, what my past is, what my real name is.
Why don't you remember your name?
My memories begin with an awakening in the forest, near the city of Corinis, at the entrance to a cave. What had happened before is beyond my knowledge. I couldn't remember anything, not even my name. I spent my childhood in corridors, where people usually called me with derogatory nicknames, like idiot or imbecile. Some even called me so dumb. I had worked as a cleaning servant in a brothel. There, I saw the most beautiful woman I'd ever seen, and I fell madly in love with her. She was a prostitute. A week later, I was robbed by some homeless people. I was left without a single gold coin and hungry. So I robbed a food stall in the market square. The militia arrested me, and unceremoniously decided to throw me into the barrier. There's a convict of the Valley of Mines.
We all heard you say earlier in the throne room. You've come a long way from a former convict in the Valley of Mines to a paladin of the Myrtanian army. I'm sorry for what happened to you.
But it was your father's laws that condemned me to the Valley of Mines. Perhaps I deserved a few days in prison for the crime of theft I committed. But surely many people have been unjustly convicted for crimes far more trivial than mine, or even for no crime at all.
Perhaps it was the Wall of Enos that brought about your misfortunes, but that is how you found your path, and chose who to fight for. If Lord Hagen appointed you to the Paladins of Myrtona, he must have seen something in you. I'm not telling you to find your answers in your faith in Enos, but live in the present. Don't forget the past, but let it go. This helped me, and I'm sure it will help you.
Thank you for your kind words, Princess. I'm off now to find a Tome 4 character.
It was a pleasure meeting you.
The pleasure was mine.